Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
Wes.
We've got monsters and we've got meeples, but not in that order. That was fucking stupid.
So I actually did a pretty comprehensive Kickstarter preview for this game back when it was on Kickstarter. So if you want to get a better feel for what the game is, definitely check that video out because it really hasn't changed between then and now. So we'll do a really brief overview for those of you who don't, you're too lazy to go back and watch that one. And then just go straight into our thoughts.
Yeah, we're mostly gonna talk about what we think, what this show is supposed to be, our thoughts. But recently it's just been, we say pretty much everything about the game, and then at the end we're like, oh no, it's good.
This is a bag building game where you've got a bag full of meeples, and as the game progresses, you are trying to add good meeples to that bag and get rid of all the crappy meeples that you can. There's the white guys who are pretty just generic. The gray are corruption, which just take up space in your bag. And as far as I can tell, there's no way to get rid of them, but there are ways to make them you can
mitigate them.
Yeah. And then there's like the different colors that are good, and then there's the colors that are super good. So that's a big part of the game, is just churning to get the best meeples in your bag possible, so that when you draw your hand of meeples, you can do cool stuff with them. And the cool stuff you want to do is go fight the monsters on the board, which is how you're going to get the bulk of your points.
Yeah, well, I have heard this be described as a bag building and worker placement game. Not really. There are spots that are kind of like worker placement spots, and you can build buildings that are more of those, but they feel more like a programmy type thing. I talked about this when I was talking about creature comforts, or like Altiplano kind of does this too, where because we don't each go around placing one worker or something, like I take my whole turn and put all my workers out there and then pull them back, it feels more like programming. It's like, I'm going to put this one here, this one here, this one here, this one here, and I trigger them all in the whatever order I wish. And then, I just resolve it all myself. There's no blocking or anything else like that. But it also does feel, when I was playing, it felt like there were 3 eras to the game. It's like in the beginning of the game, you want to build buildings. In the middle of the game, you want to go and trigger those buildings. And at the end of the game, you want to just fight monsters. They bleed together a lot. But
there's definitely the first chunk of the game is just building up meeples in your bag so that you can actually do things.
But you have to put the buildings out there first to for the... because the basic ones are, you can still get the better color. You start with white, and you can still get the basic colors, yellow. I just now realized that they're the basic colors, the primary colors, right? And then when you upgrade them, except black, but still, when you upgrade them, they're the mix, right? Purple and orange and green. Secondary colors.
So he's right that there is a churn to the game. Phases of the game where everyone's just kind of building up meeples, and there are monsters that you can fight turn 1 if you get the right hand.
Yeah.
But you don't fight them as much because it seems more valuable to use these meeples to get better meeples. And then once you get a pretty decent bag going, then you start fighting monsters a lot more and upgrading those meeples as you go, because the monsters get progressively harder as the game goes on. But the monsters are the timer. Going through the monster deck is basically how you trigger the end of the game. Mm-hmm. So there is the game length can kind of vary depending on how long you spend churning for meeples. Versus once one person goes and starts attacking monsters, everybody's going to naturally move into that because you'll start seeing his score tracker just shoot up on the board.
If you spend some time, and I guess you do have to attack some monsters if you want to upgrade your meeples, so we're talking about the whites and corruption are what you start with. The primary colors are the better meeples that you can get early, and then the super duper meeples, maybe you'll get them, maybe you won't, but they all on your board say they're all blank at first, but they all have a certain strength for battling, but then you can upgrade them, you can level them up, you can place them, you kind of burn them for a turn, and you spend points, so you have to at least have fought a couple of monsters to have gotten points, or completed missions, which is another thing we'll talk about, and then you get to place cards on top of the little indicator card, and then the strength will most likely go up, and then you'll have a special ability as well. The red one will help you kind of mitigate corruption. The black one will help you draw more. The yellow one will help you get more quests, which quests are really good because they're just extra ways, little mini goals to go for to get more points. But they're also negative points if you don't complete them. Not as many.
It's not detrimental. It's -1 point if you don't complete it.
But 5 if you do.
Yeah, so you're definitely incentivized. It's not I don't want to get any more quests because if I don't complete it, that's over for me.
And there are ways to get rid of them. Some of the monsters will let you burn force you, really. I don't know if any of the effects are a May effect or if they all have to be, but we played that they're half-dues, and it kind of works a little bit better that way.
I think so, because there is a, like, you have to weigh out, is it worth going after that guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things like that.
I did really appreciate the spending points to level up, because you're like, oh, it's 3 points to get to the next level of red. So is it early enough in the game that I'm going to get 3 points of value out of that? Like, that was a cool mechanic for me, for sure.
And you definitely do want to go through those cards and know what you're leveling them up to. Because sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, sure, it's 0 to level up the blue, sure. The biggest complaint I have, and really Wes has, like, we were talking about this pretty much the whole time, is that the gameplay is really fun. I like that a lot. The production, there's a lot of, like, symbology issues and little minor component issues. Like, the quality is good. You know, I don't think any of these things are going to break. But, like, a lot of the symbology is weird and funky.
Yeah, there's definitely points where you're like, okay, there's 2 different spots on the card where I gain meeples. What does that mean? You have to reference back to the rulebook a few times. Like,
and the rulebook isn't great.
And it's not, like, if you spend some time thinking about it, it makes sense, a lot of it. But it's not very intuitive. You have to go and be like, oh, I think this means you get a meeple and these are stronger. Oh, no, that's like, if you combo them, it's stronger. And the things like that just, it could have been a little bit more
And also,
clear.
yeah, like you was just said, like on the quest here, this quest I'm holding in my hand here, Ritual of Shamanic Knowledge, it's pretty obvious that once you complete this quest, it shows 2 points in the banner, and it also shows in the banner a little plus orange guy. So I get an orange guy. But then below that, on the bottom, you lose a yellow guy. But normally on the bottom of these cards, that's actually something you tuck underneath a certain meeple color, and you have like an everlasting bonus for forever for that. But like, not here. This is like a one time. Well, then why is it down there? Why aren't they both?
Yeah,
just
like why would they? Or why would they both be low?
It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you have these little tokens to denote your color that you can put on some of these King of the Hill spots that are work placement spots that are on the board. But then also towards the end, you're going to be fighting monsters, and you're going to want to put your claim like the big bad monsters that you fight towards the last round. You're going to want to put your claim markers on them too. And like, okay, so I guess I can't put my claim markers on them and on
if I'm also doing King of the Hill.
It's like, and then the end of the round is triggered, and we have like 2 more rounds each or something to that effect. But there's nothing to denote that. Like, I have to just remember that the end of the round was triggered on Wes's turn, you know. So then, okay, me and her each get, you know what I mean? Like, it's funky.
Yeah.
Little funky things like that. That like they could have just printed some components for it. They didn't.
To reiterate, gameplay super solid. There's nothing that would. It's nothing that would say like, oh yeah, like that might be a negative. It's just to like, it could have been polished up. It could use a second edition almost. That just
or like an upgrade pack or something. Or like in an expansion, some more components, some replacement components maybe.
Yeah. And the only other negative I could really see is that because it is a bag building and you just draw meeples out of a bag, it's possible to get just a really crappy hand. And that's true for any deck builder.
Deck building, yeah.
It does like just there is that draw though, like last round of the game, I'm ready to go and try to catch up, and I drew nothing.
Yeah, it does feel like there could be a decent amount of random too, because like your quests, right? You could get some quests that don't work out so well.
And that's just the nature of the game. It's like there's no way to really mitigate that in a bag building game, because you could also say, well, you should have spent more time culling down some of those whites so you get better hands.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing, is it does feel like there are a decent amount of ways to get rid of whites, but also there's so many ways to gain them too.
Yeah, like one of my quests was to have 5 whites at the end of the game, and I'm like
that's so easy.
I don't have to try for that.
I would have to try to not complete that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can feel kind of bad when you have a decent amount of random in this game. Especially like the corruption feels really bad because there's no real way to get rid of them. Then you feel like you need to have the reds. And the yellows. The yellows do feel like arguably the weakest one.
Except that, like, I don't know if it was just when I was playing it, but like I got a bunch of boosts for yellow. Mm-hmm. So my yellows actually became some of my best fighters in the game.
That could be another random thing of like, oh, on my turn, at the end of your turn, this monster flipped up that I can beat, and it gives me a bonus for the blacks, and I have a lot of black, you know? It's like, but then again, that's just the type of thing that can be in pretty much any deck builder. But you do really need to, like, I feel like if you let people know ahead of time, even like, you know, gamers who are experienced, be like, hey, so just so you know, we're probably going to build buildings a lot in the first couple of rounds. After that, we're probably going to go around triggering a lot of buildings. And in the end was when we're really going to hammer on the monsters. Like, we're probably going to be hitting the monsters throughout and whatever, but, like, if you think that you're going to be building a building in the second to last round of the game, no. you're not.
No, not really. Unless you're trying to get a quest or something like that.
Yeah.
You can get extra quests for building buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, really enjoyed this game. I think for pretty much almost every level of gamer, this game would fit really well. Because obviously, Tom and I are fairly experienced gamers at this point.
Fairly.
My wife is a very casual gamer, and she had a lot of fun with this one.
My sister had a lot of fun with this one too. So
if you're watching this channel, I'm going to recommend this game to you. It's one you should get.
And if you're not watching this channel,
there's going to be a purchase link down in the description box where you can pick up a copy of Meeples and Monsters. Is
that a question? For Meeples and Monsters?
I'm Ron Burgundy. Below that, there's going to be a link to Game Toppers.
2 was enough.
That was it. Do you want to do the subscribe?
Oh, yeah. Subscribe and you'll never be bored.